Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Women Unfiltered series, Spicy Saturday. I'm your host, Tabitha.
I'm your co-host, Lauren. We are on the roller coaster of womanhood, all unfiltered.
From our overrated ovaries to, yes, dating peaks and disasters.
No topic is off limits. Join us on the first Saturday of every month for our candid combos.
Unfiltered advice and plenty of laughs as we navigate the good, the bad, and the downright chaotic moments that make up our lives as women.
Get ready to embrace your inner spice and enjoy the ride.
Hey guys, welcome back in Spicy Saturday. What is up? What is up?
All
How are you feeling
right.
today?
Little burnout, candle at both ends, I'm sure you know how that's like. But we're here.
Yeah, we are we're on that time of the month over here. Didn't want to make anything for dinner and just had a s'more for dinner. Because why? Because it sounded good and because we can.
Yeah. I'm having a glass of wine, everyone. If you're watching the video part of this, having a glass of wine in my most emo gothic Halloween little wine cup. But hey,
do you drink out of that all year, or does it
for
just
me it's kind of all year? I'm that weirdo.
Yes.
Like, I had a Zoom call recently with a client who was like, I don't know, one of our brand colors is orange, and we don't want to have Halloween year round. I was like, you're telling the wrong person that, buddy. I was like, I would have it year round. I'm like, or it's like my favorite holiday. So, maybe not year round, but I'm like, it is legit my favorite holiday. But I get orange can kind of be an interesting color. Yeah. I was like, wrong person. Also phone.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody could see the video, this is my
love
phone case. So, yeah.
This just shows how opposite we are, because mine is like really girly and like glittery, and hers is just like, I just came to show up. I love it. This just goes to show you can do something with the complete opposite of the spectrum.
I
It's
know, I
great.
love it.
I
It's
love
like
it.
there's fluffy stuff, and then I'm also wearing like a snake necklace. I think people think I'd be all like pinky and stuff, but I'm not. Surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this episode, I'm sure you guys are going to hear the Frenchies. They're just digging in their little toy basket right now. They're shopping. We're talking about the ex. So this topic is something that your best friends are going to love and hate at the same time. Your bank account from your breakup will probably hate you for this episode, but your mother will probably love this episode because we're talking about exes, the dreaded exes. But we're probably not going to see eye to eye on this topic, which I'm like most excited about because it's just going to be like, I don't know. I feel like this one's going to be, I feel a certain way and you feel like completely different on it. So that's why we're like diving into the ex.
Yeah, let's do it. There's so many different ways to see relationships with exes and like the rules, and I don't know. I know it definitely gets muddy and complicated, but what are your thoughts? Like, can you be friends with an ex? First most important question,
No.
can you be friends with an ex?
No, because I mean, I've had long-term relationships where like it was hard not to want to stay friends with them because you were kind of like so entwined with like the group of friends and you're close to family and all the things. But staying friends with the actual ex, I personally cannot do. Cannot do at all. I tried it with my most recent relationship that when we split up.
Couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
I was gonna bring that up. I was like, if you don't bring it up, it might be us. I'm one of those friends. I'm like, what about hey? Well, I have been friends with some exes, as you may know. And then some not so much, but that's where it gets complicated. Like, I'm one of those people, like, yes, I can be acquaintance friends with an ex. However, it depends how it ended. And it also, if I get into another relationship, there has to be boundaries because I've dated also guys that were friends with exes. And at first I never liked it. And then kind of realized like I was always the bro, like to a lot of my guy friends sometimes. And I know some people will be like, what? She was a bro. But seriously, though, I've been in like 3 bands. So I was kind of a dubbed bro. And so I kind of had to learn to be like the friend and also accept that guys could have girlfriends. But there really, really needs to be boundaries. Like, if this is somebody that you've had sex with and and you can't comfortably tell your new significant other, "I've had sex with that person," if they ask, maybe you don't need to be friends with that person while you're in a relationship. 'Cause, I've been put in
Mhm.
situations where, like, yeah, I at first have white lied, and that's not a good thing. But, you get put in, like, up
Mhm.
against the wall and you're like, "Ooh, do I wanna straight up say that right out the gate? Like, that was our relationship, with this person?" But, I also now see it as a red flag too. Like, if I've dated a guy and he can't tell me the truth about a woman, then I'm like, then it messes up the relationship that you have. Like, my last ex who, went up in flames, like, he lied to me about a girl in the beginning when I straight up asked him, and I was gonna totally be cool about it. Like, mind you, I was like, "Okay, we all have a past. There's gonna be some people probably slept with or dated. Shit happens." But, like, when I straight up called out the energy and was like, "Hey, I feel something with this girl," and this was early on in our relationship, and I was like, "She's not being mean to me, but, women feel women." Like, it's weird. We have, like, an
We just know.
unspoken language to each other with our eyes, with our body language, and I just knew, and I was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, I kept pushing, I was like, "Are you sure? Like, you can be cool with me, I just wanna know," because I was like, I felt something, He lied, and then eventually he was like, "Okay, yeah, we slept together." And then it was like from then on, I struggled with, like, trust for a while and then eventually let it go, but it was like, "Hey, okay, like, it was years ago, but if you lie about it, that's where it gets complicated. Because yeah, if you don't feel comfortable enough to tell the truth, what are you
Mhm.
hiding of that friend?" So, I don't know. I think if you had a very sexual, heartbreaking, crazy relationship, I don't know. It depends, yeah. There's so many layers.
I just can't. I just can't. Like, I was in a very, very serious relationship, and then I relocated for that said relationship. And when that imploded last year, I got like really in my feels of like, okay, my next relationship, like, stop going into this of like looking at all the, the things, right? And I think I like passed over the red flags
Mhm.
types things. So when I met this last person, he was like, "Oh, this is my friend so and so. This is my friend so and so." Red flag for me with exes and friends is like all of his friends, and I did quotes on that one with my fingers, little finger quotes. All of his friends were female. He didn't have any male friends. And then I just kept seeing like this like continuous thing. Every time we would go out, he would like invite them out in group settings with us. And I'm like, this is kinda weird because obviously as half of these women probably were getting lit and drunk, their real feelings were coming out and the flirtation, like, I just knew. So I'd always ask like, "Hey, is so and so and so and so?" "Oh, yeah, we dated and didn't work out. We dated for 2 weeks and didn't work out. And then we slept together and didn't work out." So here I am sitting there like, I am, like, rubbing elbows with every single person that you've jumped their bones, and I'm just like the new shiny toy. So I remember going to him, I'm like, "I don't really like this, it's super uncomfortable," and he said, he's like, "They're my friends. They were there for me, even though it didn't work out in, like, a relationship aspect or a romance." He's like, "It doesn't mean they're not really cool and, like, we get along and we can have fun. They're my friends." Then but that's when I kind of, like, looked at the situation, and I'm like, "Okay, I really don't think that me personally staying friends with an ex." Now I got to see how I would feel on the other side of like, "Oh, it's really fine." It was not fine, and I just remember sitting there, I'm like, "This is so gross." Like, I'm getting the ick. Like, what, do you just, like, high five somebody like, "Hey, so, like, what was your favorite part of this?" Like, it's so weird. I don't like it. I just nope. Exes are if you've seen me naked, we're done.
You
We're
actually
out.
brought up a slightly off like, a different topic that's not exactly off topic from this, but kind of like another layer of where dating somebody who their friends are people they have hooked up with, that to me is a red flag. And I'm gonna say this for the guys listening, women too. Like, if you're hanging out with a woman and every guy she's friends with is a guy she's slept with, I'm saying that goes for both sexes, okay? I'm calling out both. Um, like, even
Mhm,
for me,
mhm.
like, I would call myself out, like, "Oh, if I'm only having what's up," I'm like, "Well, kind of gotta expand." And so I've recently gotten more girlfriends, but Yeah, I had people, like, think that about even me at one point. I was like, "No, I actually have plenty of guy friends I've never touched, never seen their wiener." Like, none of that. I don't know why I said wiener, honestly, this is how fried my brain is. But I'm like, it's possible.
We're recording this, by the way, on a Friday evening, like, when the week is max, so if y'all are listening going, "What is she talking about? We're listening to this on a Saturday night." No, guys, we prep these on a Friday night so you guys can enjoy them on Saturday with your glass of wine in your oversized pajama with, like, no bra and, like, you're just chill. But we're fried. We're sitting here on a Friday night like, "Wait, what is my name?" I actually took a, like, daily gummy, and I took way too much before this, so I ended up sleeping for almost 3.5 hours. So, like, we're having s'mores for dinner, we're having gummies, and we're burnt out talking about wieners. So,
Yay,
welcome to
wiener.
this
Oh,
episode.
I know, I can't believe I said that, so I'm like, "Woo!" But seriously, like, whether that's male or female, if that person is only friends with people they've slept with, that's a red flag to me. I'm sorry, but it is. It's like, can you not put your penis or vagina on, there? I don't know.
That's a
Red
red
flag
flag
wiener.
wiener.
We're gonna make that a hashtag, people. Please, after you listen to this episode, please leave that hashtag on one of my photos.
Can you imagine if I make that the title? Red flag wieners. I mean, pretty sure that either it would get picked up and go viral or it might just be shadow banned. It is to be determined
We'll
on that
see.
one.
Maybe we could try sneak that one in. But like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is after dating somebody like that, could you date somebody else who's like, I'm only friends with people I've slept with? Like, I don't know.
No. Because I
Really?
got put in that situation for, like, 4 months, and I remember sitting there like, "Ew, like, how am I supposed to sit here and enjoy my, like, chips and queso knowing that you guys have seen each other naked?" But you're probably wondering how our naked party
Yeah.
goes. It's just weird. Which leads me to the question of, let's say you're friends with your ex, okay? Let's say you are one of those, because Lauren's one of those. I
Mhm.
know. Tried, failed, came away with a t-shirt, burned the bitch, bye. Um, do you feel that it is acceptable if you're in a new relationship that you and your friend, who happens to be your ex, spends time alone? Do you spend time alone or is it only in group
Ooh,
settings?
that is a great question. If I have hung out with an ex, it's typically lunch. It's not dinner. And that's kind of my rule too. Like if I'm dating somebody and they want to hang out with an ex, I prefer them to like do like a coffee date or a lunch. Dinner I feel like is a little more personable. Like personal, excuse me, not personable, but
Mhm.
it like more personal and drinks are definitely happening and I don't know, nighttime there's more of a chance of something happening if you know what I mean. So for me, no, I've either only done lunch or I only talk to them. Like that's kind of my level of my relationships with most exes nowadays, especially since I moved. I'm across the country. Most of my exes are, well, some are still in Georgia, some are here in LA, but I don't see some of them. So most of our communication is via text, like or Instagram DM. Like I'm not calling them. I want that to be known. I'm not calling my exes. They're not really calling me except for my ex-fiance. But eh, that's a complication within itself. But enough time has passed in that relationship, like 5 years practically, people, to where I'm like, okay, I can answer a phone call. He's more like a friend, like a brother. But that's another thing is like, it
Mhm.
depends on how much time has passed too. Like, I do not recommend hanging out with an ex and trying to be besties a month after you've boned or after breakup, like either or, you know?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of
Especially yeah, when those, like, feelings are fresh, that's
yeah,
when
it
things
it
can get
took a
messy.
year for me and my ex-fiance to be, like, actually cordial 100%. Like and, now 5 years later, I'm like, "Hey, get you a new girlfriend, like, go out there, like, woo!"
Mhm.
But I'm like
Mhm.
I said, I'm kind of like that random weirdo that's like, "Good for you," but not in the beginning, no. Like, I'm not trying to be besties with my ex within the first few months of a breakup. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I know people are gonna listen to this and go, "What the hell?" So, I don't stay friends with my exes, but there have been 2 exes, huge time span apart, that I've either remained friends with, like, their family or, like, an intertwined aspect of their family. So, like, It's been over 14 years now, but, I dated somebody for years. He relocated, it didn't work out, and his mom and I were just, like, really, like, connected. She's super spiritual, she's very much, like, into, all kinds of, like, the crystals and, the enneagrams and all that stuff of personalities and how people fit together and stuff, and, that's where her son got it. He was a musician, and so she traveled as a musician, and, like, he was a twin, so they, like, traveled on a tour bus with their mom. Lived a completely different upbringing lifestyle than I ever did. I mean, even talking to him of, like, first days of school, he's like, "Yeah, sometimes we'd miss, like, my mom would just do, like, fun trips and stuff for us." And I'm like, I think my mom was, like, ironing my clothes, like, 2 days before for my first day of school and, like, packing lunches and, like, everything that had its place. But I remember when we split, and even now, we're, like, friends on social media, like, her and I will kind of not, like, a lot, but we'll check in and be like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Or, "How are things?" And interesting because I was like, "Yeah, I'm in, so and so town," and I was thinking about messaging to see if he would, like, wanna have lunch or something. Because when we split, he moved back to his state and, like, we never saw each other again. And it was funny 'cause she's like, "Oh, he's been in a new relationship for, like, 4 years, and he's super happy." And it was, like, weird coming from the mom where I was like, "Hell yeah, you go, dude, like, you deserve that." So it was something where it's like, I'm, like, not connected as a friend, but, like, I know pieces because I stayed connected to a family member. And then my most recent relationship, that imploded like a holy dumpster fire, um he had a young daughter, and so stayed in contact with the baby mama, which is weird because, like, her and I just never had any form of relationship. We never talked, but it was because he put that boundary and that wall between us, and so when him and I split, like, she reached out, we communicated a lot, and so it's something where, like, I get photos of, like, his daughter, and so I'm, like, kind of still, like, intertwined, but on the outside where it's almost like I don't know, maybe I have control issues, but, like, I kinda don't have an issue with that, and people are like, "Well, if you're not gonna be friends with your ex, why are you friends with family or, like,
See, that's
daughters?" You
where
know what I mean?
it can get complicated. Yeah, if you're not friends with your ex, you could end up still being cordial with his friends or his family. I mean, for a while there, my ex-fiance, I was still cool with his mom, and she was gonna visit me in LA. Like, she was even gonna come because his brother's ex, well, not ex, technically widow, let's be his brother passed away, still lives in LA, and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see Brian, maybe I'll come see you." And so I was like, "Okay." But I mean, 4 years with somebody, it depends how long you're with somebody, you're gonna develop other relationships, like, amongst that kind of commingle. So
Mhm.
that makes sense. That makes sense. I can understand that.
'Cause I know some people, like, really royally flip out. I mean, it's almost like this boundary of, like, well, if you're not gonna be friends with them, you're not gonna be friends with family, or you don't get that access. And it's like, but the other party, like, who you talk to, that's
Mhm.
also their choice as well, I feel like. It's not my choice to, like, cut everybody off. If it didn't work, it didn't work. But, I also allow them to make that choice respectfully too, to, like, stay friends with me if they choose
Yeah.
to.
I have the same thing with, like, mutual friends from friendships that have broken up, you know what I mean? Like, I had a friend recently was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
I'm going with so and so to this horror con, and, I'm going with her, but you can still have this ticket I got you. Are you cool?" And I was like, "I'm cool. I just, I'll stay away from you guys personally." But I was like, "That's
Mhm.
cool." I was like, "We can
Mhm.
all be, friends separately." So I get that 100%. It's
Yeah.
almost actually easier to be friends with those people still versus your it's just more
Mm.
personal. So,
Mhm.
but I don't know. Yeah,
Mhm.
it all depends. I think it's a really, like, per case basis on some things, like be friends with mom like the mom or the baby mama or in your case, or like the mutual friend. I think the mutual friend tends to happen more the most, like, because they're innocent bystanders. They're just like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Um, exes, geez. I feel like I have something that I was gonna bring up about exes, but now I'm dropping a blank. It'll come to me. It will. It will.
This is the big question, if you don't stay friends with them, because 'cause we're gonna get petty. We're gonna get petty patty over here. If you decide not to stay friends with them, you're not friends with your exes, do you keep them on social media so you can kind of, keep an eye on what they're doing? Especially because, I'm sorry, but men, you usually don't realize who's following you unless we like or comment because you're just like you don't think like a woman. So do you stay friends with them on there so you can
Ah.
watch their shit?
that is actually kind of what I was gonna bring. I was like gonna talk about social media. Because I have exes that still look at my stories or like still like really liking all my shit on Facebook and stuff. And I'm sorry, but like
Mhm.
that's the first thing I usually cut off when it's done. Like, I don't want to be looking at your shit. I don't really care if you look at my shit, you know? Like when it's done, it's done. Like I cut more ties on that just because I need that like space to heal.
Do you block them, or you just let
I
them
let most of
watch?
them watch. The only person I have blocked is you know who. So for reasons,
Mhm.
legal reasons and stuff. But yeah, most people I can watch, but like what's weird to me is how some of them will still look at my shit and I dated them 10 years ago. I'm like, that's not okay.
Mhm.
Like, he should be like not giving a shit about me. Like, I'll tell you this, like, I will get curious. I used to be guilty of this where I wanted to look for the first month or two, you know, and be like, oh, what are they doing? Who are
Mhm.
they hanging out with? Now I'm like, bye, fuck off. Like, I don't care.
See.
So that's why I'm like, it's weird. I have such a like complicated thing where I'm like, yes, I can be friends with some exes and be cool acquaintances. While in that beginning stage, I absolutely cut ties. I'm like, I don't really want to follow you. I don't really want to look at your shit. But I used
Mhm.
to. And I stopped doing that for a good reason because it mentally would, I don't know, I would go down rabbit holes. So what about you?
Mhm. If it's it depends on the breakup. If it's toxic, I'm like, no, I'm a huge block person. I'm out. Like, if I will not be seeing you on a day-to-day basis, you do not have access to me. You should not have access to my social media. But it's because my socials for like what I do is very like open, and I'm very much kind of like an oversharer. Because there's days that I'll look at like stories that were highlighted. I'm like, why the fuck did I feel the need to share that? Oh god. Now how many people how many of y'all screenshotted that? Good lord, I would love to see some people's phones. Just kidding. Um, but it was something where in a prior relationship, I remember it being an issue because like we both didn't like realize, I guess, that we were like following exes. So as you scroll, you're like, "Oh, I like that picture." Well, the person I dated at the time, he was like, "Hey, I noticed on Instagram like this guy's liking your mess or he's liking all your photos and then you're like commenting on things or liking his stuff back." And then it was like this weird situation where I was like, "Wiener red flag." One, I was like, "Damn, you're really watching my stuff more
Mm.
than like I do." Like, I can't even go in that fast and look at my notifications, but then I was sitting there going, "Okay, think about it from the other side." Because then it was like this awkward conversation I had to say, "Yeah, that was like my ex from a couple of years ago." And then it brings up conversation, "Oh, are you guys still friends?" "No." "Okay, then why are you following them?" And it was always my reaction of like a dude. I was like, "I don't know," because I didn't know. I don't know. I just sometimes I like to get nosy. Sometimes it's like 2 in the morning and I can't sleep and Love is Blind, I'm already caught up and I have like nothing to do, so I scroll
Mm.
on social media, right? And then I go down a rabbit hole and I'm like, "Ew, is that your new girlfriend?" You have to tell me if you do
Uh-oh.
this because I just did it today. And I thought of this. It's not an ex, but it's somebody where he, like, posted a photo on his story, right? But it was, like, shared from hers. So they were, like, on a vacation and they're, like, in Vegas, like, with a photo or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, you have never posted anything about a girl." And so what did I do? I went to find that person's Instagram. I couldn't find it. And I was like, "Wait, what are you hiding in Vegas?" But it's kinda weird because you can go down those rabbit holes, right? I think when you have an ex
Absolutely.
that
And
you
that's why
follow.
sometimes I cut that, like I unfollow, but I don't always block. You took it to another level on that. I don't always block. So then, but sometimes I have to. Like with the last ex, I did have to because I knew that like maybe I'd be curious. But, you know, I even do that with friends. Like I can even like see and I'm like, oh, that's a new person they're looking lovey dovey with. And then you like start investigating. Like I think that's like
Mhm,
a female habit where guys love to kind of semi cyber stalk, where women are like investigators. We're like, oh, they posted this new girl. Who is she?
mhm,
What's her job? What does she do? Like, how long have they maybe been dating? Like, it's true. We do it. Like, I've literally investigated people within 2 minutes. Like, even if it's like a client, someone
mhm.
I'm thinking about. I mean, the guy I went on a recent date with, I even found was able to put 2 and 2 together and find him on social media. I was like, "Oh, there he is." So guys, just a
Mhm.
heads up, women can investigate, you know?
Fast. We
No,
could
yeah,
find things fast. I would say usually we could find it faster than the FBI
seriously.
probably could these
I
days.
think so. I've impressed some coworkers being like, "Oh,
Mhm.
you've been trying to get in with that one client? Here they are. They posted
Let
on
me go
Instagram
find
2 days
him.
ago." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're alive. They're available.
Mhm.
They're posting on social media."
Yep.
But
So, this episode also goes not just with exes, but we're gonna throw in friends with benefits in the mix because let's be real, we've all had them. We've all had them. Whether we want to admit it or not, we've all had them here and there.
oh,
Yeah, she agrees. Adeline's like, "I agree." Do you stay friends with
you know,
benefits?
that might be the one that's kind of a weird one. Because it's more sex-based. I actually haven't really had friends with benefits. I never really had. No. I've
What?
had mistakes where it was, like, kind of a semi one night standy thing, but I've never had a multiple occurrence friends with benefits. Like, I was usually dating the person if stuff was going on. Um, I don't know if the guy maybe
Hmm.
saw it that way, but I didn't. I was like, see?
Ah, good point. You may have had friends with benefits and you didn't even know you were
Exactly.
the benefit.
So that is one thing I have learned from my guy friends is like, they're like, "Did you not realize you might not have been really dating?" And I'm like, "Oh, touche, touche." So, and then I tell the
Mhm.
guy friends when they're talking to a girl and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're dating." I'm like, "Have you had the conversation? Have you?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. You
Uh-huh.
tell me more about friends with benefits because I don't really have one per se that I've experienced that I knew about.
I had one in I had one in my 20s, like my early 20s. I was savage. I always say now in my late 30s, this is my karma for how shitty I acted in my early 20s because I just thought I was like the business. I don't know. But I mean, I would flirt with men. I never had like a ton of friends with benefits. I wasn't like that, but just to have male attention, like I lived in this complex, I swear now looking back. I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time and it was like a little mini 90210. Everyone would go to the pool, like, during the summer, everyone was, like, sleeping with each other or, like, making out with somebody, and I think I was, like, 22, 23. I was probably all of, like, 90 pounds because I was, like, not eating, surviving on energy drinks and, like, Jack in the Box tacos at 3 AM. That's probably why I have an autoimmune disorder now. And, it was weird because, like, we would all go to work, and then in the evenings, we would all go down to
Mm.
our community pool at this apartment complex, and then everyone would bring a cooler and their mixed drinks. There was, like, we'd play, like, volleyball in the pool and barbecue, and, like, everyone would just be, like, hanging out. Everybody was in their 20s, everybody. Then we'd all, like, go out to restaurants and bars together, and then, obviously, when a last call hits, then it's like, "Oh, who can drive me home?" And then things got, like, kinda weird kinda quick. But I remember even, like, going back to my apartment to get ice one time, and it was, like, this one man that came up, and he's like, "Oh, I'll help you carry the cooler down." Okay, didn't think anything of it. Tries full on, like, making out with me in my kitchen, has a girlfriend who's a good friend of mine down at the pool, and so I'm like, and he said, he's like, "I'm looking for somebody for friends with benefits." And I remember I'm like, "You have a girlfriend?" And he's like, "Yeah, but we have more of, like, an open relationship." And so I remember being, like, freaked out and thinking, "Oh my god, friends with benefits, you nasty red flag wiener. Like, get out of my kitchen, take the cooler down, you are a sick pervert." But I've had one in my 30s, and it was weird because they were just missing things in a relationship aspect, like, literally this person was like Peter Pan.
Mm.
Didn't wanna grow up, like, Mr. Flighty, but we had a great time, we loved spending time together, but for the relationship, like, he just couldn't get
Mm.
his shit together. And we remained friends, which was weird because then it was like, "Oh, I went on a date." Like, if a bad date happened, like, I would hit him up and go over to his house and, like, have a beer, out on the back porch, and he's like, "Oh, you have a bad date? What happened?" And it was so weird because I've never had that experience before. But then I remember sitting there going, "Okay, is this really healthy for me? Do I have boundaries with this person?" Because it would be random, like, "Yeah, me and my girlfriend having an argument, like, you wanna go hang out and have a beer?" And I'm like, I am like that person. I'm getting myself in a sticky, messy situation. You are not my friend. You just
Mm.
want to get in my pants. And it's just like weird. I feel like friends with benefits, if it was like out of fun, yes. But obviously, I am a firm believer if friends with benefits, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but no, it's not true. One of you is going to have feelings stronger than the other, whether you want to admit it or not. So I don't know if you can stay friends with somebody like that because I feel like the sexual chemistry and the tension is always there because they got the free pass that they didn't have to like do the, hey, what's for dinner? Let me make birthday plans. What time are we going to your parent? They just had that aspect of you for fun with, like, no commitment.
Yeah, so maybe you didn't have a full-blown one, because like, I have friends that have actually had full-blown friends with benefits. It was, like, understood, this is sex, there's no emotions, no, like, no strings attached, like, nothing. I can't I
I had one,
See,
but I
that's
got
it
connected
eventually
because he was
happens.
hot.
One person always does, and I'm thinking of one
Uh-huh.
girlfriend in particular. Please don't get mad at me if you listen to this. I'm not gonna name names, but, like, there was one, she was very well aware of what it was. It was kind of understood, and then eventually she's, on and off caught feelings. And I was like, I knew that would happen. So that's why I say I technically haven't had one, because if I have sex with somebody, and this is scientific too, people, like, for women, there's a certain hormone that gets released if we actually have an orgasm. So sorry for the guys if we don't have an orgasm, but like if you do, that is when women actually get attached. I forgot what the hormone is called. Maybe we can Google it in like a second. But like that, maybe that could be a red flag wiener. No, I'm just kidding. That's a great wiener. That's a golden wiener, people. It's
Willy Wonka
That
wiener,
is a
golden
word that I will
ticket.
take from the Lady Gang dictionary, but, like, they call it dickmatized, and so that's when I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
shit, this can't be that." Like, I've tried, believe me, but I will admit, like, I lived in my 20s, okay? Like, that's what I'm saying, like, even though I didn't have multiple currents with one person, I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't, like, sow my oats, but I was also very much a relationship person. But yeah, I know people that can successfully do it. I can't because in my experience, oxytocin, yes, which
Oxytocin.
is a great thing.
Oxytocin. That's why, y'all, I was looking down because 'cause I'm like, I am bound
That's
and determined to
that's
find
also
this
what
right
gets
now.
released when you do a drug called Molly. Um, speaking of drugs,
Mm-mm.
people, I've only done that once, and I've also had sex on it, and yes, it's magical, but I do not recommend doing that drug anymore. Again, living in your 20s. But yeah, it takes you to a whole nother level, I will say. For my friends listening to this and the people listening to this, if you have done it, had sex on it, it is like out of body experience. But yeah, now I'm going on a weird tangent here. But seriously though, like yeah, that's where I have it. Like I there was one person that I've hooked up with since my last ex, and I think he wanted it to be a friends with the benefits, but I kinda was just trying to get myself out there and ride the bicycle just to kind of, you know, get see if I can even do it,
Yeah.
post-trauma people, but, like, I kinda realized I'm like, "Ooh, maybe I don't wanna go there, because I didn't wanna catch feelings for him, and I know for a
Mhm.
fact he's, like, not there. Like, you kind of felt with your friend, because 'cause I've made the
Yeah.
mistake too. I've gotten attached to guys that had other relationships, and that was my teens, actually. 2 different experiences where I had guys coming after me being like, "Oh, yeah, but it's cool," and then I'd find out later it wasn't so cool, and I was like, "Thanks. I didn't really wanna feel like
Mhm.
oh, thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot."
Mhm. I just I have so many times, like, this is a topic that I wanted to talk about on this episode, being friends with exes and exes in general, because I just can't do it. I always think of, like, I always put myself in other people's shoes, and, I mean, there's somebody that I like right now. I have my eye on somebody, and it's like a situation where I could not stay friends with an ex because I live in a small town now, which is, like, super weird, but I live in the outskirts, and so it's, like, something where I don't want my new partner to feel uncomfortable knowing that if we go somewhere, walk in a room somewhere, or whatever, it's like, "Oh, ho is any one of this is any guy in here, like, an ex?" type thing. Just because I felt like that moving to my new town and, like, meeting new people and stuff, because I was literally thrown into the depths of, like, "Oh, I'm, like, hanging out with this person, I think he's a great guy," and I'm like, oh my god, like, incognito, I never knew. He's, like, the town pass around, and everybody here is looking at me like, "Oh, you're just the new person." And it made me feel such like a crappy person just because of the choices that somebody else made, and I'm like, I don't ever wanna put an ex through that. And I also don't wanna put my new partner out of respect for my new partner, like, I don't want a name to pop up on my phone and be like, "Who is that?" Like, when it's done, It's done. Like, I took out the trash. I had the experience. The chapter is over. You don't like if a book is good, you keep going, right? And if a book is crappy, do you just keep rereading the same chapter and like expecting it to be better? Or no, I just chuck the book in the trash. I don't even finish it. Bye. We're done. So I don't feel like I can be X. I don't know. X is friends. Can't
I
do it.
can't in
I just can't do
time,
it.
but I do think an X is an X for a reason. Speaking of X's, though, have you ever recycled an X? Because I know people that have done that. I have now done it, and now I've learned that it is not a good thing to do. Again, an X is an X for a reason. But you have to live and learn. But I know people that have like been infamous for that. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like when it's done for me.
No. I did it once in like my late 20s, but it was something like
Oh,
we both knew. I mean, we just kept like push pull, and like he just kept saying he's like, I don't know if it's gonna work out. And I'm like, well, let's just try this and let's just try this.
okay.
I was stupid. I was so ridiculous. Now I'm like a freaking cold hearted spicy bitch because people are like, just try. You never know what could happen. I don't want to try. No, I just want to sit in my pajamas and hang out with my dogs. No, thank you. It takes a lot of work to like date, and I'm just not in it. But I have my eye on somebody, but it's probably not gonna go anywhere. Um, I work. I throw myself too much into work. It distracts me from the
Me
wiener
too.
stupidity. So, okay. So big question, big question. If you go out, because I just like had this pop into my brain today and I like legit had to write it down with my memory. So you're going out to lunch, right? Because you feel that like daytime is good
Mhm.
to hang out with an ex. Who pays? Do you split the bill? Who
That I
pays?
split the bill, yeah. Yeah.
Because you're friends. Do they
Oh,
offer?
I don't even remember because I haven't gone out with an ex in a long time. Dep sometimes they've offered, the guys offered, but I try to set that precedence or, like, that boundary of, like, "We could split it, it's fine." So that's why, like, if I go out on a date now and a guy splits it, I'm like, "Well, how am I supposed to know the difference in my mind?" You know?
Mm-hmm.
So no, I always offer to split it. So I and like I said, sometimes they offer, but I won't offer. I'm not gonna cover their bill. I'm sorry. No, no. Because
Mm-hmm. Do you keep alcohol out of the equation for the plans? Do you feel that alcohol
yes,
can cause
I've
issues?
actually learned the hard way. Again, we make all our mistakes in our teens and our 20s. And yes, I've hung out with somebody who was an ex and like I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. We can just hang out at night, have a few drinks. Nothing will happen. Oh yeah, something happened.
Mm.
I was on a break with a
Mhm.
from a serious boyfriend, and I hung out with a guy that I dated before or whatever. It was a friend, and yeah, no, stuff happened. So yeah, I can actually say point blank, people, not a good idea to have alcohol involved if you're hanging out with an ex. Let alone hanging out with them in general or
Mhm.
hanging out with them at night. All those threes, probably big no no.
Mhm. This next question is something that I've kind of had a little feeling of. So if you're friends with an ex, that means they're free game, right? Uh, can people around you, like said friends in your friend group, can they
Ooh.
date them? Or are they supposed to be off limit because they are your ex? Or are they free game?
Ooh. I think that one depends, on how the relationship ended and, how our relationship is now, like, with that person too. So, like, how it ended, are you on good terms or, like, acquaintances at least with that person to where it's like it wouldn't be awkward? And I think there's always a conversation that needs to be had. But I don't know about you, but, like, I have, like, my girlfriends that are here in LA and, like, there will be, certain rules, like, well and it's sometimes it's unspoken too,
Mhm.
like I mentioned earlier in this podcast episode, like, women have an unspoken language. There is, like, certain guys that I know my girlfriends have dated, and I'm just n it's I know not to go there. She doesn't have to tell me, like, I know. And I think
Mhm.
they know the same for me, but I still feel like if something was to happen, the conversation would happen, but, like, most of the time, with your girlfriends, you're like, "No, that guy messed her up. That guy fucked her up in a way that, like, that's probably not a good idea." Because yes, guys
Mhm.
can be different to different women, and so can women to men, but it's like if you know what that person did to your friend, like, no. So, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
prefer it. I do not prefer to date someone that has dated a friend of mine. I have accidentally
Mhm.
there was a guy that I dated when I was in hair school when I was 21. I think I was 21, 22. Um, I didn't know until after him and I had been dating for a month that he had dated my friend Heidi. And she like had texted me one day and she was like, I hear you're dating Eric. She's like, him and I dated. And I was like, what? Why didn't you tell me? I had no idea. And I already had feelings invested. Like I was dickmatized at that point. This dude was like,
Mhm.
had me wrapped around his finger. And guess what? Karma was a bitch. Even though I wasn't intentionally trying to date someone she had dated, I didn't know. He broke my heart. That's for sure. So
Mm, mm,
yeah. What about
mm.
you?
Mm, mm, mm. Well, I feel like it's an unspoken thing when it comes to women, or it should be. It's, that obvious girl code. But the reason I ask is because I don't think that men really look at a friend group and truly for what it is, because relationships suck anyway, right? When you split up. And then you feel like your friends have to pick sides. So when you're all in this group and you find somebody else attractive, I'm asking this because I went on a dating app after my most recent relationship and we split. And I was like, "You know what? I live in a small town. Screw it. Just throw shit at the wall, see what sticks." I matched with a guy from our friend group who I was introduced to, like, through him. So it wasn't like I knew him, like, on my own, and then we all kinda, like, it was somebody that he's known for a while in this town, and I remember he was like, "I really wanna go on a date with you, like, let's just try." And I remember saying, like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, like, this is super weird. And he had said, he goes, "The last time everybody went out as a group," he's like, "I could tell that you guys, like, were not working out." And he's like, "I was purposely hitting on you." I'm like, "Oh, I just thought you were being nice." He's like, "No, I was purposely hitting on you." And he's like, "The dumbass didn't even realize it." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, he was kinda dense anyway." But I did it. I went out on the date, which was kinda weird because he picked the restaurant that my ex and I were supposed to go to the very first time we met, and they were too busy, so we ended up, like, went somewhere else. I'm like, "Of course, we went here." And, I remember, like, sitting there, and I found, like, the only thing I had really to talk about, because I didn't know this guy, like, at all, was to talk about my relationship with my ex, was to talk about, like, our friend group. And I remember sitting there like, I never talk about an ex on a date, and I'm sitting here doing that because, like, I have nothing to talk about with this dude. And then I remember after I was like, "Should I say something? Like, I went on a date, should I not?" And I've always just, "Well, now you know, if you listen to my shit, now you know." But it was, like, the weirdest thing because I felt guilty for, like, even going on a date. Like, I literally gave, like, a side hug of, like, "Okay, bye," and that was it, like, at the end of dinner. But it was awkward. Like, I almost felt like in the friend group, I was, like, the ex that was, like, the conquest, which is why I asked
You
the
know, that's
question.
funny you bring that up because being friends with a lot of guys and like have dated some musicians. I say that cautiously because I know some people like to, talk shit about me sometimes on the internet. But I notice guys don't they say they have bro code, but I don't feel like they do. I really do not feel like they do because
Mm-mm.
when I was in high school, there was a guy that I liked, but then I found out his friend liked me. I'll give their names because they might not listen. Um, if they might, never
Or
mind. I'm
they
not gonna
just
give their
might.
names, but there was two different guys and they were besties, and they're like became a situation where I was like, friendly with them both, but not like doing any. I really liked this one, and it actually eventually became complicated. But it was funny. They both were like openly pursuing me at the same time, and I've had that happen more than once in my life, but I just remember that one vividly where I was like, "How are you guys, like, okay with that?" Like, as girls, technically, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, once we kinda see, like, there's been kind of a claim there, usually girls will kinda be like, "Okay." But again, there's also the women that, like, see a wedding ring and they don't give a shit. So but, like, I've noticed it actually, just as
Mhm.
much with men. Like, seriously, no offense, guys, like, men that are listening to this, like, a lot of y'all why are actually, this is a question for the men. Why are you more okay with dating your friend's ex? Like, why? I'm looking at him straight, like,
Mhm.
seriously, I wanna know because I have literally had guys do the same thing as the guy you went on a date with. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I was flirting with you the whole time. I've had a crush on you the whole time." I'm
Mhm.
like, But how did your friend feel about that? You know? I'm like, how did they feel? Because for me, yeah, I feel absolutely guilty um, about that guy, and I found out after the fact. I was like, so yeah, that relationship was doomed the second even I found out because I started feeling weird about it. Maybe he felt weird about it, but
Mhm.
it's it's definitely that is tough though. But you're in a small town though, so that's why I feel like the inevitable.
Mhm. I remember sending audios to every girl I knew that was like, "Oh my god." Like, there was a girl that flew here to be, like, part of our friend group. She was dating, like, his best friend. She flew in from
Mhm.
California here to Texas, and she was the first one. I was like, "Oh my god." And she's like, "Oh, you should do it." I'm like, "Should I?" And then I, like, didn't know how to respond of, like, "Should I go on the date? Should I not go on the date?" I remember, like, audio messaging every single person. I remember audio messaging you after. I was like, "Yeah, so I went on a date with said person." You're like, "And?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's freaking awkward. That was really awkward." Super. I think I was looking over my shoulder the whole time too of like, what if? Like, what if he walks in? What if I'm seen here? It's a small town. And I was like, you know what? I'm not like sitting on the bar top naked for goodness sake. I'm like having a freaking chopped wedge salad that by the way was really gross. And I came home. Like
But it
it was
does
it was
get
done.
tricky when you're in a
It was done.
smaller population, though. Like that could be the inevitable that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm moving to LA from Atlanta. I feel like I have a little bit of a bigger dating pool here, even though it's not the best. I'm
I
sorry?
miss that. I miss that. Phoenix, you're
Yeah, it's
missed very
like
much.
I'm like, "Yay, I'm from Georgia," but at the same time, I'm like, the dating pool was smaller. Like, Atlanta's big, but it's still nothing compares to, like, LA. Like, I haven't run into
Mhm.
actually 2 of my exes that the last 2 that I've dated, I've yet to run into them, and I'm like, knock on wood, thank the stars. That's how big LA is. But when I was in Atlanta, oh, yeah, you'd run into an ex eventually. Like, but now I'm like, it's too big here." But that is also the downfall. It's like, I feel like you would pros
Yeah.
and cons because 'cause you're like, "Eh."
Yep. Well,
Well,
here they go again. Rylan is just fucking ripping right by them. Like, "Get."
mm.
I'll edit this out. Rylan Tate and Kaden Ash. You're gonna get your butt whipped, my girl. She's like, Mom, quit. I got like 2 seconds to do my ending.
So, we're wrapping up
Yeah,
here,
two
wrapping
seconds.
up.
She's like,
Time!
I got Wallen. I got 2 seconds.
Annabelle does
Two
that too when I'm
seconds.
trying to work.
Two. Two. You want up here, you fucking whore bag. You're such a whore bag, Rylan. Go play for 2 seconds. Oh. Well, I'm glad we did this episode to talk about exes because we want to hear your feedback. So I have polls on all of these platforms. We want to hear like, do you stay friends with your exes or do you not? This is a yes, I do or no, I don't. Because as we showed you, there is gray area. Let us know, take your poll and interact with us. If you are on YouTube and you're watching us, hey, make sure that you comment down there of maybe some things that like we didn't even think about or talk about with it when it comes to exes because I think that there's a lot out there that people feel guilty almost or you feel like kind of spicy that you're choosing to do with exes, so we want to hear it. Maybe we have to do a part 2, but this episode was super fun. We have an exciting, very exciting, you get a sneak peek because I'm feeling extra generous today. Thank you, time of the month, feeling nice and emotional. So we have a guest that is coming on. We're getting ready to record for her, with her in September, and it's going to be your drop for next month for October. Lauren was talking about all of the musicians. Let's just say she used to date some very, very well known musicians. This guest that's coming on with us. She used to work for a morning radio show in LA. She is extra spicy with a side of sass and a little bit of a kick ass. So I'm super excited to have her on. She is a little badassy, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. You just got to follow all my socials and pay attention because she is a rock star and it is in her name. So good to see you. We're going to have a lot of feedback on this episode. I am stoked. And next month, it's going to be like all hands on deck because there's going to be no filter
Ooh,
on the
I'm
next
I'm
one.
excited. I wonder if we have some of the same ex speaking of that.
Mhm. We will have to wait and see. This is gonna be some party, all in our PJs, all with a beverage of choice. And yeah, we're going to all get down and dirty. Have fun with us.
Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode of Spicy Saturday Women Unfiltered. We hope you enjoyed our unfiltered take on today's topic.
Set those date reminders on the first Saturday of every month to catch our most candid conversations about the highs, lows, and everything in between.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the spice with your friends. Stay unfiltered, stay fabulous, and we'll catch you all bold bitches on our next episode.